are talking about the Chinese killer shark movie called, well, Killer Shark is the actual name of the movie, but it is also known as Death Shark, and this is directed by Shi Qiang. Now, obviously has a Chinese translation to the title. I'm not going to pronounce that because it's just going to be disaster if I attempt to do that. And this is obviously a somewhat serious kind of take on a tried and tested genre of the killer shark variety. What's the story? Well, it focuses on these 6 kind of late teenagers, young adults, as they decide to go for a jolly old boat trip out in the middle of the ocean. However, they run afoul of some coral, and their boat ends up capsizing when they're kind of messing around, and they're now stranded at sea with the boat capsized and slowly sinking. They decide it's probably best if they split into 2 groups, with one party kind of staying on the boat, or what's left of it, whilst the other try and swim for help. And of course, in these waters you have a killer shark hungry for human flesh. What'll happen? You'll have to watch the movie to find out. So let's discuss, first of all, what works. So in case it wasn't clear, this is obviously Chinese movie, hence it is a subtitled film unless you are Chinese. So, what can we say that works in this movie? I think some of the cinematography, first of all, is pretty impressive. Now, we do get a sense that these guys are out in the open ocean, and there's kind of like no help to be found, with some good sort of wide angle shots, things like this. I also think it looks like, you know, it's quite beautiful at times. They actually do quite a good job of mixing in some stock footage, not just of sharks, but we see stock footage of other fish, even a whale kind of passes by, and it's kind of integrated within the film sort of quite well. To actually kind of give the sense of things in the ocean other than sharks, and they're kind of like, before they even realise there's a shark there, they're in awe of the kind of other animals that may live in the sea. So I thought the use of some decent cinematography, along with integrating these kind of stock footage of other kind of animals, works actually quite well, and it seems to be quite seamless, I have to say. I always find it quite difficult to judge acting if it's not obviously in the English language, because I'm reading the translation on subtitles, and it's not always the same as what they're saying, so it's hard to judge. But because we're talking about obviously a fearful subject, that being shark, there's a lot of physical acting involved, and I have to say I thought the acting, or at least it seems to be quite good. At least the physical acting I felt was not too bad from our cast here. Obviously it's a lot of screaming, shouting and crying and things like that, so I guess it's not too difficult. But I think they did well for the film that was presented to us. And, you know, it follows a kind of tried and tested sort of formula. It's not a complex plot, so it's pretty easy to follow, if you want to say that's a kind of like a plus point here. And the shark does seem like it's particularly a large shark, and you do feel the scale of it, I would say that. Most of the time, there's a couple of shots where they do use stock footage of a real shark, and then it looks considerably smaller. But when we are looking at our CGI, it does feel genuinely threatening, because it does seem to be a real bulky kind of shark, which was kind of quite good. And there are a couple of fun little character turns. For example, there's actually a little bit of a villainous turn for one of the female cast, what I wasn't expecting, and I thought that was kind of quite fun. Just a little kind of moment here where one of the female characters turns into a little bit of a villainess, and I thought it was quite fun. However, let's talk about what doesn't work. The plot is super basic. I mean, there's no real kind of surprises here. It's just kids get trapped at sea, there's a killer shark, wants to eat them. That's it. So the plot isn't any more kind of complex than that, and we've seen this movie done a million times before now. So, you know, you might wonder why make a film where it's such a simple plot that it kind of doesn't need to be made. I mean, if you talk about things like, you know, 47 Meters Down or the Shallows, they try to have a little bit of a different thing, being that they're either trapped in a cage or they're trapped on a rock, things like this. So it tries to add something a little different. This is just, you know, it's practically the same plot as The Reef, really. So not particularly original. I think the thing that would bother most people here is going to be the poor CGI. Now, I've recently watched another sort of Chinese creature feature, and it was the same problem. Some really poor CGI. I mean, you're kind of looking like circa 2000, 2001 sci-fi channel movie levels of CGI here. So I wonder if it's just, you know, just where they are in that kind of that kind of the cinema now. It just, it doesn't seem to be particularly good CGI in the films that I've seen so far. And they're different production companies as well, so it's not the same production company. So CG is quite poor. There's also some silly choices that they make. For example, the shark is growling, and it's not a jokey film. You know, this is not a silly Sharknado film where you can kind of get away with that. But we've got the shark growling and stuff like that, which is a little silly. As I said, there are a couple of instances where they do use stock footage, and I like the stock footage of the other animals, but when they use a shark, it obviously changes size and shape when they kind of do use it. I mean, they don't do it a hell of a lot, but, you know, it's noticeable when they do. There's also some odd choices in regards to some of the kind of the editing here. For example, it's a lot of it to do with the sound, if I'm honest. So we'll have like a score playing on full blast, and then the kind of it cuts to the next scene, and it just like snap, and it just ends. And it's just like, oh, that's some really jarring kind of sound editing there, and it's just, you know, what's kind of going on there. I have to say as well, the female characters here, outside of that one instance where we have a little bit of a villainous turn, all they do is cry and scream. Only the male characters have anything to do, if that makes sense, other than the kind of the one instance where I say. So it's just like there's some, you know, there's not a lot for them to do, to be honest, other than just be victims and kind of get the guys to try and save them and things like that. Overall, though, I mean, I have seen limited other kind of reviews on this movie, and I don't think it's quite as bad as I've kind of was led to believe, because I did think it was at least competently made to a point. I mean, outside of the CGI maybe, but it was still, you know, some good photography, an exciting film in some respects. I did kind of get the sense of, like, you know, when you don't know where the shark is going to come from. And there are a couple of sequences, I will say, when the shark is underwater, really, where I didn't think the CGI was too bad, because it's a little murkier there, and they can get away with it. But the CGI is going to be the main thing that a lot of people don't like. But it's completely unoriginal. The CGI overall is going to be very kind of like off-putting for some people. And, you know, there are some just silly, weird... Another thing is, like, when the boat capsizes, like, immediately capsizes. Again, it's probably just an editing sort of flub there, really. But it's just, like, they hit the reef and it's, bam, the next shot, it's, like, capsized. And they're, you know... Some of the transitions here are a little poor. I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 10. It's not a great movie, but I think there is some enjoyment if you are a, you know, a shark movie fan. It's probably on par with kind of sci-fi movie channel things, Asylum, sort of shark film, stuff like that. Never going to break the mold. It is actually probably a little bit below average, but still enjoyable if you like a shark movie. 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.